Hello, and a very warm welcome to your articles. So, these are the articles that appeared in our most recent newsletter, which is the Autumn Equinox newsletter. And the first one we're going to read to you is Rest, the leadership strategy you may be overlooking. So thanks again to our brilliant clients who've asked us to read them the newsletter, as they can do that, of course, whilst they do all the other jobs that people have to do today instead of sitting and reading. So it's a great idea. We thank you for the idea. And let's talk about rest. So when, as leaders, we talk about strategy, we talk about vision, we talk about goals, performance, growth, then the conversation usually focuses on all these very key things, perhaps innovation, but rarely do we talk about rest. We're not big fans of rest generally in business, and yet you wouldn't try to do anything approaching a marathon, a big long walk, anything that was physically exerting. You would say to yourself that you have to recover as well as build. And yet in business, we forget this. Because without rest, your organization, your team, and ultimately yourself isn't sustainable. So we know we need rest, and then we need to talk about what rest really is. So, of course, we think of rest as a night's sleep, a recharge before the next day, and then perhaps that option of having a holiday if we're lucky enough, perhaps even more than one a year where we get a week off, or perhaps we even get two. And we think of that as our rest, and then we're back in to work. But you will have experienced the almost universal thing where you get back after a couple of days and you go, really, was I ever on holiday? And it doesn't feel like you've had a holiday at all. That's because rest is a complex, multi-layered thing for the body, mind, and spirit. So, Dr. Sandra Dalton-Smith actually identifies 7 types of rest. And how often do we do that? Okay, I need a rest. Let's just tick off those 7. And that's physical, mental, creative, emotional, social, sensory, and spiritual rest. And each is essential to the whole system for health and rejuvenation. And we often overlook at least 1, 2, or 3 of them. So the first exercise for you to do is, out of that list of 7, which ones are you good at getting and which ones are you the worst at getting? Which ones are you not getting? Because if you are becoming the leader who never really switches off, so, physically fine, you might be resting, you might be sleeping, perhaps you're getting a nap, but mentally, are you resting? You will have had those nights sleep, I expect. I know I did, especially before I discovered a lot of this work, where I woke up thinking that my head hadn't rested at all, hadn't been asleep. So physically, I've had to lie down, but mentally, I haven't switched off. Or, you go for a rest and you scroll. Or, you power through meeting after meeting, but you've got no hobbies left. You're never doing anything creative for yourself. Now, teams mirror leaders. Okay. If the behaviors you want aren't embedded in yourself as a leader, you're teaching something else. So your team will not do what you do as much as sorry, wrong way around. The team will not do what you say, they will do what you do. Much more likely to do what you do. So the problem with that is that we often talk about rest, we often encourage rest and rejuvenation and time out and all the rest of it, but we're not actually modeling it. So we have to change our habits, because true resilience requires those 7 types of rest. And they don't always have to come in big holidays. You know, I've got a couple of clients at the moment who are seeking longer holidays because they think that's going to give them what they need. You know, I'm overwhelmed, I'm completely overwhelmed with what we're facing. I need to take a break. I need to take a longer break. I need to take a sabbatical. If you don't truly rest in that sabbatical, it won't do what you're wanting it to do. So you have to really have the courage to lead in a different way and to talk about these 7 types of rest. Sometimes spending time with your loved ones, your children, your children's children, other people's children, it gives a social rest. So it's not a case of the big social event where you're the host, because that's very rarely restful, but it is a social gathering where you are able just to charge that battery a bit. And children, young people, are very, very good for this. People that you love is very, very good for this type of rest. People that you're close to, because of course you can relax, you can be yourself, you can have a really good laugh, you can let some of your guards down, and as my kids would say, muck about a bit. Good. It also requires that we get rid of these beliefs around rest being somehow weak. You know, if you need rest, you can show your vulnerability. Rest is crucial. You know, I had a big belief in my system around rest being basically for the wicked, and the morally bankrupt, as I can hear a member of my family saying, and that rest is really, you know, you can sleep when you're dead. You can rest when you're dead. Come on, let's get up. Let's do something. But it creates imbalance. And it doesn't, it's like trying to grow plants without nurturing the soil. Rest is your lower level sustainability. So you have to really embrace this idea. So at this equinox, let's remember balance. The earth comes into perfect balance of day and night at this very special gateway. So let's remember to do something different and really honor rest and just see what happens. When I started to honor this, I noticed increased creativity. I noticed an increase in my mental capacity after rest. I noticed an increase in my patience, my empathy, my ability to connect, because I was resourced from my inner self. So it may be a challenging concept for you in this fast-paced world, and I genuinely do understand, but it's one that is an overlooked strategy. So it could just give you a competitive edge. It's that wonderful story of the chopping wood competition somewhere in the Canadian forests, I'm sure. And the 2 people who were competing in the final, one of the guys was chopping and chopping and chopping, and he kept it. Whenever he swung his axe, he was going, hang on, the other guy stopped. Oh, brilliant. I've definitely won then. And on he went. He was there again with chopping. Ah, he stopped again. Oh, got this in the bag. Absolutely in the bag. Come on. And of course, at the end, as in all great training stories, the opposite had happened and the other guy had won. And he's like, well, hang on, how can that have happened? You've cheated. You've definitely cheated because you were resting, you were stopping, you know, doing nothing. You were lolling back. And while I was chopping, the guy goes, no, I didn't spend any time doing those things. He said, you were asleep. No, I wasn't asleep. Because, well, how come I could hear that there were times when I was chopping and you weren't? Oh. You mean when I was sharpening my axe? Rest is sharpening your axe. It is repairing and resharpening your abilities. It is allowing your system to come in to an optimal state of functioning. It's essential. So, if you want to know more about this, join our Firelight Circle. It's completely free. It's a no pressure coaching circle where you can just warm your fingers and toes and see if this kind of work ignites a bit of a spark in you. See if you love it, or see if you just like it a little bit and want to get involved. You're very welcome, and you'll find a particular speed coaching session on the 7 types of rest to get you started. Thanks for listening. Bye.